I pretended to leave work early that day. I said goodbye to everyone, picked up my coat, made a small joke about finally beating traffic, and walked out like it was any other Tuesday. No drama. No suspicion. Just another tired man heading home. But I didn't go home. Instead, I got into my car, drove slowly down the ramp, turned the corner, and parked across the street, in the far end of the lot where the security cameras didn't quite reach. From there, I could see the rear entrance of the building perfectly. I turned off the engine and waited. I didn't know exactly what I was going to see. I only knew something was wrong. And when you've spent decades in one place, around the same people, you learn to trust that quiet voice that tells you when things don't add up. I was 58 years old, and I had worked at that company for 31 of those years. 31 years of showing up early. 31 years of solving problems that weren't technically my job. 31 years of staying late when others went home. I wasn't the CEO. I wasn't the owner. I wasn't even upper management. I was the operations supervisor, the guy who made sure everything actually worked when the pretty plans failed. And that day, something felt off. It started small. It always does. A meeting I wasn't invited to. Emails that stopped including me. A new policy draft that referenced decisions I had never approved. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. That maybe I was just getting older. That maybe the company was modernizing and I was being sensitive. But then came the looks. The way conversations stopped when I entered a room. The way my manager, Daniel, avoided eye contact. The way HR suddenly wanted to check in about my retirement plans. I wasn't planning to retire. And that's when I decided to watch instead of ask. Because asking gives people time to lie. Watching doesn't. So there I sat, engine off, phone in my hand, eyes locked on the back door. 5 minutes passed. 10. Then, at exactly 5:42 p.m., the door opened. Daniel stepped out first. He looked around, scanned the lot, and then waved someone forward. 3 people followed him out. People who absolutely should not have been meeting without me. Karen from HR. Mark from finance. And a man I had never seen before, tall, clean-cut, expensive suit, carrying a leather folder tucked under his arm. They didn't notice me. They didn't expect anyone to be there. They walked toward the executive parking spots, laughing quietly, relaxed in the way people are when they think the game is already won. My stomach tightened. I zoomed in on my phone camera. They stopped near Daniel's car. The stranger opened his folder and handed Daniel a document. Daniel skimmed it, nodded, and passed it to Karen. Karen smiled. A real smile. The kind of smile HR people never show unless something very bad is about to happen to someone else. Then I saw my name. Not on the screen. On their lips. Karen said it. Clear as day. My name. Mark laughed and shook his head. He won't see it coming, he said. Daniel replied, he won't fight it. Guys like him never do. They just fade out. Fade out. Like I was already gone. The stranger said something I couldn't hear, and Daniel answered, yes. His access is still active. He trusts us. Trusts us. That was the moment I realized this wasn't about retirement. This was about removal. I didn't confront them. I didn't get out of the car. I didn't call anyone. I stayed right there, invisible, recording everything. They talked for another 5 minutes, enough time for me to understand the shape of the knife before it went in. They weren't firing me. They were building a case. A performance review narrative. A concern about adaptability. A paper trail designed to make it look like I had become a liability. And the stranger? He was a consultant. A transition specialist. Someone hired to help companies quietly push out long-term employees without lawsuits. I had seen this done to others over the years. I just never thought it would be me. When they finally left, I waited another 10 minutes before starting my car. I drove home in silence. That night, I didn't sleep. I replayed the video over and over, not because I needed proof, but because I needed clarity. They were planning to erase me. And they thought I wouldn't notice. The next morning, I showed up exactly on time. Same routine. Same desk. Same calm expression. But inside, something had shifted. I stopped helping. Not obviously. Not dramatically. I just stopped filling gaps no one acknowledged. When systems broke, I documented instead of fixing. When deadlines slipped, I emailed instead of staying late. When decisions were unclear, I asked for written confirmation. I became procedural. 2 weeks later, Daniel called me into his office. He smiled like a man holding a script. Just wanted to check in, he said. How are you feeling about the changes we've been making? I shrugged. Change is fine. As long as expectations are clear. He nodded. Exactly. That's what we want too. He slid a document across the desk. A performance improvement plan. I didn't open it. I'll review this with my attorney, I said calmly. The smile vanished. Just for a second. Then it came back, tighter. Of course, he said. Take your time. I left his office knowing one thing for sure. They weren't ready. Because they thought I was alone. What they didn't know was that I had already sent the parking lot video to a friend of mine, a labor attorney I had helped years ago when his company needed operational consulting. He called me that same night. They're sloppy, he said. And they've underestimated you. He explained something important. If they wanted to push me out, they needed consistency. Documentation. A clean narrative. And the moment they deviated, just once, we could destroy the whole thing. So I waited. And I watched. 3 weeks later, Daniel made a mistake. A small one. He reassigned one of my core responsibilities to a junior manager without telling me. I documented it. Then he criticized me in writing for failing to manage outcomes related to that responsibility. I documented that too. Karen from HR scheduled another check-in. She asked questions that were clearly designed to bait me into saying something emotional. I stayed calm. I answered carefully. And I recorded everything. Then came the final move. They scheduled a meeting for 6 p.m. on a Friday. Mandatory. Executive attendance. And once again, Daniel told me, you can head out early today. We'll handle this. I smiled. Thanks, I said. I appreciate it. I packed my bag. I walked out. And once again, I didn't leave. This time, I parked closer. I knew exactly where they would meet. And at 6:12 p.m., they walked into the conference room. I watched through the glass. The consultant was there again. So was a new face, a regional VP. They were confident now. The consultant pulled up a slide deck. I couldn't hear the audio, but I didn't need to. The title slide told me everything. Operational Restructuring, Phase 2. My position was highlighted. My role described as redundant. My name listed next to a timeline. 2 weeks. I felt something then, not anger, not fear. Focus. I pulled out my phone and sent one message to my attorney. They're doing it tonight. His reply came immediately. Good. Stay put. I stayed. At 6:48 p.m., something unexpected happened. The VP asked a question. Daniel answered too quickly. Karen corrected him. Mark hesitated. The consultant frowned. You could see it the moment the story stopped aligning. The VP leaned back in his chair. He said something sharp. Karen's smile vanished. The consultant flipped pages faster. This wasn't going as planned. At 7:03 p.m., the meeting ended abruptly. People left in silence. No laughter. No confidence. Daniel stormed out. Karen avoided eye contact. The consultant looked annoyed. That's when I stepped out of the shadows. Evening, I said. They froze. Daniel's face went pale. I thought you left, he said. I did, I replied. And then I came back. I looked at the consultant. You must be the transition specialist, I said. Funny. I don't remember approving that expense. The VP looked between us. Who are you? He asked. I smiled. I'm the guy who makes sure this place actually runs. And I have some questions about a plan that includes my name. Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. The VP turned to Daniel. Why is this the first I'm hearing about this? Daniel stammered. Karen tried to recover. I didn't let her. I have recordings, I said calmly. Emails. Documents. A clear timeline of decisions made without proper authorization. I handed the VP a folder. Prepared. Labeled. Clean. My attorney had helped me assemble it that afternoon. The VP opened it. Flipped a page. Then another. The room shifted. I think this meeting is over, he said. He looked at Daniel. Come see me Monday morning. Then he looked at Karen. And bring HR documentation. He left. The consultant packed his things without a word. Daniel didn't look at me. Karen looked like she might cry. I walked out. On Monday, Daniel was placed on administrative leave. Karen resigned 2 days later. The consultant's contract was terminated. And me? I was asked to step into an interim advisory role, reporting directly to the regional VP. Not because I demanded it, but because they realized something too late. I wasn't expendable. I was foundational. 3 months later, during a restructuring announcement, my name was mentioned publicly for the first time in years. Not as a problem, but as a stabilizing force. I still park in the same lot. I still leave on time most days. But sometimes, when I walk past that back entrance, I remember sitting in my car, watching people who thought they could quietly erase me. And I remember the lesson. You don't always win by being louder. You don't always win by fighting first. Sometimes, you win by watching. By waiting. By letting people reveal exactly who they are. And then, when the moment is right, you step back into the light. Not angry. Not bitter. Just prepared. Just prepared. That wasn't the end of it. It never is. Because when people fail at removing you quietly, they often try again louder, messier, more desperate. For a while, things were calm. Too calm. Daniel's office stayed dark. Karen's name disappeared from email threads. The consultant became a rumor people whispered about but never confirmed. On the surface, it looked like I had one. But experience teaches you something important. When predators lose a clean kill, they don't walk away. They regroup. About 6 weeks later, I noticed the first sign. A systems outage. Minor, but unusual. A permissions error that locked several departments out of a core operational tool, the same tool I had designed years earlier and personally maintained access for. IT blamed a routine update. I knew better. That access didn't break on its own. Someone had touched it. I checked the logs. There it was. An admin override issued under Mark's credentials. Mark from finance. The same Mark who had laughed in the parking lot. The same Mark who had said he won't see it coming. This time, they weren't trying to push me out. They were trying to make me fail. If operations collapsed under my watch, the narrative would write itself. So I did what I had learned to do best. Nothing, at first. I let the outage linger just long enough to trigger escalation. Just long enough for senior leadership to start asking questions. Just long enough for pressure to build. Then I fixed it. Quietly. Precisely. And I documented everything. The override. The timestamps. The downstream impact. I sent a short email to the regional VP. Subject line, unauthorized system access, resolved. No accusations. No emotion. Just facts. The reply came 20 minutes later. Thank you for flagging this. Please forward full documentation. I did. 2 days later, Mark was called into a meeting. By Friday, he was gone. No announcement. No farewell email. His access was simply removed. That's when people started treating me differently. Not warmer. More careful. Hallway conversations paused when I walked by, not because they were hiding something, but because they didn't know what I might already know. I wasn't feared. I was respected. There's a difference. Months passed. The company stabilized. Metrics improved. Deadlines stopped slipping. The VP scheduled a one-on-one with me. He didn't pretend. I owe you an apology, he said. We trusted the wrong people. I nodded. It happens. He leaned forward. Why didn't you come to me earlier? I answered honestly. Because I needed you to see it yourself. He smiled grimly. You're smarter than most people give you credit for. I've noticed, I replied. He offered me a permanent role, formal authority, expanded scope, better compensation. I accepted. Not because I needed the title. But because titles protect you from people who mistake silence for weakness. The strangest part? No one ever apologized directly. Not Daniel. Not Karen. Not Mark. They vanished into the corporate ether like they'd never been there. And I was fine with that. Because apologies are for people who feel guilt. What mattered was this. They never tried again. A year later, a younger employee stopped me in the hallway. He looked nervous. Can I ask you something? He said. Of course. How do you know when something's wrong? I mean, before anyone says it out loud? I thought about it. About the scratches on a lock. About a meeting I wasn't invited to. About a smile that came too easily. You know, I said. You just don't always trust yourself. He nodded slowly. I added, start trusting yourself. That night, as I walked to my car, I didn't linger in the lot. I didn't watch. I didn't need to. Because the lesson had already been learned by me, and by everyone who mattered. If there's one thing I took away from all of it, it's this. The most dangerous moment isn't when people attack you. It's when they think you've already lost. That's when they get careless. That's when they show their hand. And that's when watching quietly, patiently, becomes your greatest weapon. I never pretended to leave early again. I didn't have to. They knew better now. They knew better. Or at least, most of them did. Because even when the structure changes, even when the people change, there are always a few who don't learn from other people's mistakes. There are always a few who think they're smarter than the system, smarter than history, smarter than the quiet guy who doesn't talk much but sees everything. About a year after all of that, we hired a new director of strategy. His name was Evan. Early 40s. Ivy League degree. Confident handshake. The kind of man who spoke quickly and listened slowly. From the first week, I could tell he didn't like me. Not openly. Not disrespectfully. But in the subtle ways that matter. He interrupted me in meetings. Rephrased my points as if they were his own. Talked about legacy systems while glancing in my direction. I didn't react. I had learned that reacting was what people expected from men like me. Men they assumed were threatened by youth, by change, by ambition. I let Evan talk. I let him plan. I let him present. And I watched. 3 months in, he proposed a sweeping operational shift. Outsourcing certain logistics functions overseas. Cutting costs on paper. Reducing internal oversight. The board liked the numbers. I didn't. Not because I feared change, but because I understood consequences. In the meeting, I asked one question. What's the contingency plan if the vendor fails compliance audits? Evan smiled politely. That's extremely unlikely. Unlikely isn't impossible, I said. He brushed it off. The plan passed. 2 weeks later, compliance failed. Not dramatically. Not enough to shut things down. Just enough to trigger a regulatory review. That's when Evan panicked. He started scrambling. Making calls. Sending late-night emails. Asking questions he should have asked months earlier. And then, inevitably, he tried to make it my problem. He forwarded an email chain to leadership implying that operational oversight had historically been lax. Historically. Meaning me. I read the email slowly. Carefully. Then I opened my archive. Because I keep everything. Every warning. Every objection. Every documented risk. I replied once. Attached 3 memos. Dated. Signed. Acknowledged. Each one outlining the exact failure that had just occurred. I added one sentence. As noted previously, this outcome was anticipated. That was it. No accusation. No defense. Just reality. Evan didn't last long after that. He wasn't fired immediately. He was repositioned. A lateral move that everyone understood wasn't lateral at all. Eventually, he left on his own. People always do when the narrative stops protecting them. Years have passed now. I'm closer to retirement than I used to be. I won't pretend otherwise. But I'm not afraid of it anymore. Because I know something now that I didn't know before. Being underestimated is a gift if you're patient enough to use it. I still see younger employees rushing to prove themselves. Speaking over each other. Taking credit too fast. Playing politics before they understand the game. Sometimes they ask me for advice. I don't tell them stories. I tell them this. Pay attention to what people do when they think no one important is watching. That's where the truth lives. The day I pretended to leave early changed how I move through the world. Not because it made me paranoid. But because it reminded me of my value. Not the value written on org charts. Not the value debated in meetings. The real value, the kind you only recognize when someone tries to quietly take it from you. I don't watch from the parking lot anymore. But I still notice who waits until they think the room is empty before showing their intentions. And when I see it, I don't rush. I don't confront. I don't react. I remember sitting in my car, engine off, watching people who thought I was already gone. And I let history repeat itself, only this time, on my terms. On my terms. That became my rule. Not written anywhere. Not announced. Just something I carried with me quietly, like a compass. A few months after Evan left, the company brought in an external audit firm. Routine, they said. Standard governance review. Nothing to worry about. But I noticed who was nervous. Not the people who worked hard. Not the people who owned their decisions. The nervous ones were always the same type, the ones who spoke in generalities, who avoided specifics, who used phrases like "we all agreed" without ever saying who actually agreed. The auditors requested interviews. They started with leadership. Then department heads. Then unexpectedly, they asked to speak with me. Alone. In a small conference room with no windows. 2 auditors. 1 man, 1 woman. Both polite. Both sharp. They didn't ask about processes. They asked about people. Has there ever been pressure to alter documentation? Have you observed decisions being made outside approved channels? Has anyone discouraged you from escalating concerns? I answered honestly. Not emotionally. Not dramatically. Just clearly. I didn't name names unless asked directly. But when they asked, I didn't protect anyone either. When the audit concluded, the final report wasn't shared widely. But changes followed. Policies tightened. Approvals centralized. Oversight strengthened. And once again, the same pattern repeated. The people who played clean stayed. The people who relied on shadows didn't. One afternoon, long after most people had gone home, I found myself standing by the window in my office. The parking lot below was almost empty. A few cars. A few streetlights. For a moment, I just stood there. Watching. Not because I expected something to happen. But because I remembered. I remembered how small that car felt. How quiet. How invisible. And how powerful. It's strange how life teaches you its biggest lessons when you stop trying to control the outcome and start paying attention instead. I never told anyone that story at work. Not the full version. People knew pieces. Rumors travel faster than truth in places like that. But no one ever asked me directly. And I never offered. Because the story wasn't meant to make me look brave or clever. It was meant to remind me of something simple. Your greatest leverage is not your title. Not your tenure. Not even your intelligence. It's your awareness. The ability to notice when something doesn't feel right. The discipline to wait instead of react. The courage to act only when the moment is undeniable. A few weeks ago, on my way out one evening, I saw a young woman sitting in her car in the lot across the street. Engine off. Lights out. Watching the building. I didn't recognize her. I paused. For a second, I considered walking over. Asking if she was okay. Then I stopped myself. Some lessons aren't meant to be interrupted. I got into my car and drove home. And as I merged onto the road, I smiled, not because I knew what she was watching for, but because I understood why she was watching at all. Sometimes, the most important thing you can do is pretend to leave. And see who believes you're gone. See who believes you're gone. That's something no one teaches you. Not in school. Not in onboarding. Not in leadership seminars with glossy slides and borrowed quotes. You learn it the hard way. By being overlooked. By being dismissed. By being treated like background noise. And if you're lucky, very lucky, you learn it before it costs you everything. After that night, after seeing that young woman in her car, I thought a lot about the versions of myself I'd been over the years. The eager one. The loyal one. The dependable one. The invisible one. I had been all of them. And for a long time, I believed loyalty would protect me. I believed doing good work was enough. I believed silence was professionalism. I was wrong. Silence is only professionalism when everyone else is honest. When they aren't, silence becomes permission. These days, I'm more deliberate. I still don't talk much in meetings, but when I do, people listen. I still don't play politics, but I understand them. I still leave on time most days, but never without making sure my presence and my absence are both felt. I mentor a few younger employees now. Not officially. Just quiet conversations. Coffee. Walks to the parking lot. I don't tell them to be suspicious of everyone. I tell them this instead. Trust people, but verify the environment. Most betrayals don't start with malice. They start with convenience. Someone decides it would be easier if you weren't in the way. Someone convinces themselves you won't mind. Someone assumes you won't notice. They're rarely evil. They're just careless. And careless people leave patterns. The truth is, what saved me wasn't intelligence or experience alone. It was timing. If I had confronted them too early, they would have adapted. If I had ignored my instincts, they would have succeeded. I didn't win because I was stronger. I won because I waited. Eventually, my retirement did come. Not forced. Not rushed. Planned. On my terms. There was a small gathering on my last day. Cake. Speeches. A few awkward jokes. Daniel wasn't there. Karen wasn't there. Mark wasn't there. But the people who mattered were. The ones who actually did the work. The ones who stayed late without needing credit. The ones who understood that companies aren't built by presentations, but by people who show up every day and care. As I walked out for the last time, I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Because the lesson I learned there didn't belong to that building anymore. It followed me. Into every room. Every conversation. Every quiet moment where something felt just a little off. So if you ever find yourself in a place where the air changes when you enter the room. If meetings start happening without you. If people tell you not to worry while giving you reasons to worry. Don't panic. Don't confront. Don't announce your awareness. Sometimes, the smartest move is the simplest one. Pretend to leave. And watch. Because the moment people think you're gone is the moment they tell you everything you need to know. Everything. That's what they give away when they think no one is paying attention. Their plans. Their assumptions. Their true opinions of you. People are careful when they think you matter. They're honest when they think you don't. I've replayed that first afternoon in my mind more times than I can count. The way the engine ticked as it cooled. The faint hum of traffic. The casual confidence in their voices when they thought the story was already written. They weren't cruel in that moment. They were comfortable. And comfort is what makes people sloppy. If I had stormed back inside that day, if I had demanded answers, raised my voice, insisted on explanations, I would have given them exactly what they needed. Time. Time to adjust. Time to rewrite. Time to make me look unstable instead of observant. Instead, I stayed still. I watched. And in doing so, I let them tell the truth for me. That's something I carry into life now, far beyond work. When someone suddenly becomes distant. When explanations stop making sense. When praise turns into patience, and patience turns into silence. I don't ask why. I pay attention to when. Because timing tells you more than words ever will. I've learned that dignity isn't loud. It doesn't demand recognition. It doesn't rush to be seen. Dignity waits. It gathers facts. It protects itself quietly. It moves only when the ground is solid. That day in the parking lot didn't make me cynical. It made me clear. Clear about who I am. Clear about what I bring. Clear about what I will never give away again, my awareness, my agency, my worth. So if you're listening to this and something in your life feels misaligned. If you sense a shift you can't explain yet. If you feel yourself being eased out of rooms you helped build. Don't doubt yourself. Step back. Create space. Let people believe whatever story they want. Because belief changes behavior. And behavior reveals truth. Sometimes, the most powerful position you can take isn't at the table. It's just outside the frame. Watching. Waiting. Ready. That's what I did. And it changed everything. Everything. That's what changed. Not the company. Not the people. Me. I used to think strength meant being indispensable. Being the one everyone relied on, the one who fixed things before they broke, the one who stayed late so no one else had to. Now I know better. Indispensable people scare organizations. Aware people stabilize them. The difference is subtle, but it's everything. Indispensable people get removed quietly. Aware people get consulted. The day I pretended to leave early taught me that lesson more clearly than any promotion ever could. Because in that moment, sitting in my car, engine off, watching people who thought I was already gone, I finally understood where real power lives. It lives in restraint. In patience. In choosing when to act instead of reacting the moment your emotions demand it. I didn't win by exposing anyone publicly. I didn't win by humiliating anyone. I won by letting the truth surface on its own and then stepping forward when it could no longer be ignored. Today, my life is quieter. I work on my own terms. I choose who gets my energy. I don't chase validation anymore. Because once you've seen what people do when they think you don't matter, you stop needing their approval. So if there's one thing I hope you take from this, it's this. Pay attention to what happens when you're not supposed to be watching. Pay attention to who relaxes. Who changes tone. Who reveals their plans a little too easily. Those moments aren't accidents. They're invitations. And whether you accept them or ignore them can change the entire direction of your life. Sometimes, the smartest thing you can do isn't to fight for your seat at the table. It's to quietly step away. And see who celebrates your absence. Because the moment they do, you'll finally know exactly where you stand. And from there, every move becomes yours to make.